All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to session 6 of the Balanced Gymnast program. Tonight is just for parents. We're going to be chatting all about supporting your gymnast relationship with food and their body. And then where do we go from here? Because it's been 3 months and I know you guys have had some great successes. This is just the start of the journey. And the thing about fueling a gymnast is they're going to continue to need nutrition support as they get older, as they advance the levels, as their hours change, their schedules change, their situations change. So it's definitely not a one and done, but it's our goal with these first 3 months of the program being such kind of intensive, concentrated learning that you have a really good grasp now on starting to think like a sports dietitian, being able to track growth, be able to look at their performance and recognize those signs and symptoms of when things are not quite on track. So tonight we'll talk a little bit more about kind of the softer side of nutrition, so to speak, right? Not as hardcore about like calcium and bone health and stuff like that, but the kind of the soft skill side that's so important. So we're going to talk about fighting against diet culture and what that means, what can go wrong with nutrition, not to scare anyone, but I think in today's age, culture, social media environment, like you definitely have to be active in terms of helping your gymnast know like what's real, what's not, how to support normal eating, how to support a healthy body image. Just parents tonight, Heather. I'll type that in the chat. Anyways, and then we'll kind of do a wrap up of kind of what we need to learn and take away and go from here. So you guys know that for the first, several weeks of this program, probably all you heard from me was adequacy, right? Of I just need them to get enough nutrition. If you've got a picky eater, I don't care. We just need them to get enough calories, right? Because that is king. Like that is going to get you 80 to 90% of the way there. Obviously, I care about nutrient density, right? I care about your gymnast eating healthfully, and all of us do. Melissa, Megan, Ryan, we just know that there are certain priorities that we first have to meet to really support your gymnast's overall health and well-being. I think supporting their attitudes around food and their relationship with food is so important because how many of us have struggled, right? How many of us have struggled with food in our bodies? Maybe you were a gymnast, maybe you were an aesthetic sport athlete, or maybe you've just always felt uncomfortable in your body, or you've been on diets, or you've had trauma. It's like, right, we all struggle with these things and we don't want to pass that along to our gymnasts. And so when we're kind of stepping back and evaluating their eating, I think it's really important for any athlete to be able to enjoy all foods, right? Not be afraid of any sort of food group. I had a parent tell me the other day that they had a birthday party and there was a gymnast that was there, and the gymnast was like, oh, well, if we, go have this for dinner, like I can't eat birthday cake. And I'm like, oh my goodness, like what kind of messages are you hearing at home? Like you literally train 30 hours a week. Like you can have like birthday cake and whatever was for dinner, right? Um, it's normal for athletes to be able to pay attention to hunger and fullness to a certain extent. But I had a convo with a parent today about this of, when you have a gymnast training 20, 25, 30 hours a week, if they're a picky eater, if they are more on the anxious side, if you guys just have a crazy logistical schedule, there's probably going to be a lot of times that they don't actually feel their hunger. And so I know it can be, maybe frustrating as a parent. Like this parent told me today, and I really loved this. She was like, I was hoping at this point that I wouldn't have to push her as much, right? Like I wouldn't have to remind her as much of, having to finish her lunch and having to eat her breakfast. And I was like, I hear you, because I think every parent wants their gymnast to have more autonomy with nutrition in that way. But given, the level her gymnast trains and how much she trains, I'm like, I don't think that's like a realistic expectation, right? Like it's not, our gymnasts are not normal adults where we're literally sitting at a desk job all day and able to like eat breakfast and wait until we're hungry and then eat lunch and check in with our bodies, right? I think there are certain instances that our gymnasts can do this, like especially around the sweets and treats and stuff like that. But I think more often than not, there's just going to be times where they have to eat anyways, even if they're not like super hungry. And it's not a bad thing. It's just part of being an athlete at this level. I think it's important to be able to be relaxed and enjoy what you're eating, right? To not feel guilt and shame. And certainly to be able to leverage fuel for performance, right? I don't want your gymnast to be afraid to give herself some extra carbs at gym if she's feeling tired and see if that helps, right? So I don't know if I told you guys this in session 3, but They've done some really cool research studies on Kona triathletes, which Kona is like one of the most famous triathlons. So biking, swimming, running, totally insane amounts. And they found that people who race it the fastest, which is the goal, they can consume 120 carbs per hour, which is crazy because this race is like multiple hours, I think like 6 to 8+ hours. So that's 120 grams of carb per hour. For reference, this is like a 20-ounce Gatorade that only has 30 grams of carb. So like 4 of these per hour. Obviously, they're not drinking that much fluid. They're getting it from like literal food and gummies and like however they can get it in. But your gut is actually only designed to handle like 60 grams of carb per hour. And if you mix the different types of carbs, you can sometimes kind of push the limit to like 70 or 80 grams per hour. But these athletes have literally trained their bodies to tolerate 120 grams an hour, totally in the name of performance. Like there's no other reason that they have done it other than they want to be the best. And while our gymnasts certainly don't need 120 grams of carb an hour, I want that same mentality. I want your gymnast to go into that, high performance camp, to go into that college bound camp. And at hour 6, I want her to still be vaulting, right? I was talking with a parent this week, and her 14-year-old second year level 10 went to a college camp this weekend. And it was like 6 hours straight of gymnastics, like all day Friday and all day Saturday or whatever. And she said the first day, like most of the level 10s were not vaulting by the end of the day, or they were only doing like your Chenko tucks, which is not what a level 10 should be doing. And it was really sad. And they literally weren't doing it because they were too tired. Meanwhile, her kid, who's been fueling for a couple of years, was just crushing it. And because of that, all of the coaching staff was super interested. Like, she's not old enough for them to like officially talk to her, but what better way to stand out, right? When you have this high performance camp, you've got all these level 10s who have flown in from all over, and yet the kid who's getting the attention is the kid who is still doing gymnastics, right? I mean, I had the same experience when I had to coach at a camp a couple weeks ago, and in the afternoon of the camp, I was on beam with a college coach, and like we were only doing series, like we were not doing super crazy stuff. But she could tell that the girls were just like checked out. They were having a hard time focusing, and she like had to dumb down the assignment. And I'm like, that is such a bad look if you are trying to get the attention of said college coach. And then it's also a waste of the couple $100s that you just spent on the camp, right? So that's what I mean by fuel for performance, of really leveraging everything that your body can possibly do, being willing to push it without worrying about the carbs or your weight or anything else like that. So while we talk a lot about adequacy, of course, I care about healthy eating, right? And I try not to use that word a lot just because I don't want to have your gymnasts feel that foods are good versus bad. I really like the verbiage of just more nutritious versus less nutritious, because that's very factual, right? Like we know that avocados are more nutritious than a bunch of, butter, right? Or canola oil, or like pick another fat source. And so I think it's okay for them to understand that, yeah, objectively, some of the stuff we eat is more nutritious and maybe some of it's less nutritious, but it still all has carbs, protein, and fat. It still all contributes for energy. And I think things can have their place in the diet as you want them. So how do we reconcile these two concepts of like wanting to eat really nutrient dense, clean eating, like whatever? How do we reconcile that with still helping our gymnasts to have a healthy relationship with food and not feel guilty when they, eat that piece of pizza or do whatever? This parent told me, like that same gymnast that was worried she couldn't have birthday cake and whatever they were having for dinner in the same night, also asked to like come to their house to trick or treat because there'd be more walking in the neighborhood, so she'd burn more calories. And I was like, oh my goodness, right? Like, what is she hearing at home? Like that is pretty disordered, which we'll talk about tonight. In my mind, gentle nutrition it's combining these two concepts of having this nutrition knowledge, but also understanding that there are foods that we just get pleasure for, right? It's just kind of a hedonic pleasure of, what I like, I don't know. I like mocha syrup in my latte, right? If I was trying to be super healthy, would I drink it black? Probably, right? Or drink it unsweetened. But I really like a pump or two of mocha sauce or my favorite Chobani creamer or whatever. And I think that there's kind of room for that sort of discretionary nutrition for sure. I don't want your gymnast staring at nutrition labels all day, every day, right? I think there's other ways we can know whether or not we're getting what we need. But at the same time, sometimes you do need to look at a nutrition label, whether you're looking at a sports drink to make sure it has enough carbs or some other carb snack. And that doesn't make it disordered. I think it just all has its context. I think you should always use your outer nutrition wisdom when making decisions. So, sometimes you just really need a cookie and you're going to eat it with dinner and enjoy it and move on. And other times it's okay without it, right? And I think most importantly for our gymnasts, it's helping them to step back and look at the averages, because gymnasts are very perfectionist, black or white, dichotomous thinkers, because that's gymnastics, right? Either you do the skill or you don't. Either it was good or it wasn't. And so we don't want them to get stuck in that mindset with food of like, oh, I'm having a cheat day, or oh, I've eaten like crap today, or oh, I feel guilty for this, or oh, I had dessert and now I'm already unhealthy, so I'm just going to go eat 18 more cookies, right? Like, who of us has been stuck in that trap before? We don't want them to have that. We want to step back and look at the averages. I have this coach that really wants me to talk about holiday eating with the gymnast. And I'm like, I don't really care what your gymnast eats on Thanksgiving. If your gymnast eats too much on Thanksgiving, I don't really care, because number one, it's probably not too much in the grand scheme of things. Number two, she probably needed that extra nutrition. And even if she didn't, it's one day, right? It's all going to average out. So like, I really don't care if she has 3 pieces of pie on Thanksgiving, like nothing bad is going to happen, right? So again, it's stepping back and looking at the big picture and helping your gymnast to do that, because that is not their natural bin with probably the type of person that they are. So what does gentle nutrition look like? I think it can be, choosing whole grain breads, choosing sourdough, choosing things that are less processed, right? That have more nutrients, more fiber. Nothing wrong with that, right? I think on pizza night, you be very intentional about adding a salad or cutting up fruits and veggies to provide additional nutrition, right? Pizza night doesn't have to be the night that you feel guilty about because you were too tired to cook. No, it could be a fine dinner that we can balance a plate. I think there's a lot of products out there that sometimes can be kind of diety, but sometimes not, right? And I think a good example would be like a protein fortified pancake mix. If you like that and it's an easy way to get protein in your gymnast with the carbs without having to have an extra protein on the side, then awesome. If your kid hates it and thinks it tastes horrible, okay, that's fine. Do regular pancakes and just make sure they have enough protein with it, right? It doesn't mean it's diety, it's just an option. I think another form of gentle nutrition, which we'll talk about this in December, is, making sure you're eating the right things at the right time. So I probably do not want your gymnast to have a fried chicken sandwich and French fries right before she competes, because that is a higher fat meal and the fat is going to slow down digestion. And that could just leave her feeling not super great. Her tummy could hurt. She could have an upset stomach, or digestion could be delayed to the point that those carbs don't get where they need to go fast enough. And so it's not that I'm sitting here saying that you're not allowed to eat Chick-fil-A, you can't eat fried chicken, it's bad for you. We're just looking at the context of the situation and saying, oh, kind of in this situation, it's maybe not the best idea. Same thing with eating a chicken Caesar salad before a meet. I cannot tell you how many very talented level 10s I've worked with, and a grilled chicken Caesar salad is their like pre-competition meal. And I'm like, no wonder you only sometimes kind of make it through your routines, right? Or you're good, but like, how much better could you be if you actually were fueling with the right thing? So like in that instance, while a salad is maybe what people would consider healthy, that's actually not the healthiest choice given the situation. So how do we use this with our gymnasts? I think you assess the sustainability of any sort of lifestyle that you adopt, right? Again, I don't think there's anything wrong with wanting to eat healthier, wanting to eat more nutrient dense foods, wanting to cook more from scratch, wanting to make, more nutritious choices when you're eating out and on the go. I would encourage that, right? As best as you can in your current situation. At the same time, though, I don't want you to, say that you're going to eat homemade meals every single night with every single ingredient made from scratch, and you do it for 1 week and then you quote unquote fall off the wagon, right? Like that is not helpful either. And your gymnast needs to learn like what real sustainable habits are. I think we can drop the moral value around food, right? It's just food. It's not good. It's not bad. It is what it is. Again, we know that some of it is objectively more nutritious versus less nutritious. That's fine. But I think it all can have its place in the right context. I think you need to respect genetics, right? We all have a different body type. We all are a different body shape. And I think it's important to respect that. And then I think you need to assess the risk of every nutrition decision or intervention. Be so careful how you talk about food, how you talk about your own body. We do not need to be, collectively dieting as a family, like none of that stuff. Obviously, you are an adult, right? You're the parent. You have autonomy over your own body, so you get to do whatever you want. I just would be cautious about what your gymnast is exposed to in that way. I think that diet culture, which is this multi-billion trillion dollar industry obsessed with making you hate your body and buy their products to feel better about it. I think it's crept into gymnastics, right? I think there's a lot of fear and misinformation, specifically around carbohydrates, around snacks, around fun foods. I had a parent in my DMs this weekend that was telling me that they had like a team meeting at the gym and the coaches were getting onto the girls about their intra workout snacks and said that they were eating too many snacks and they didn't like what snacks the girls were bringing and told them that they needed to bring carrots. And her, 15, 16-year-old level 9 interpreted that as they think we're fat, right? And I know that that's probably not what the coaches meant, right? The coaches probably, didn't want the girls snacking on Takis and goldfish and french fries and whatever else they might bring. But again, it's that difference between fueling versus snacking. Actually, the right snacks at a very intense long practice probably is going to be the fruit snacks and the pretzels, right? Like you guys know that it's about the right foods at the right time. It's not necessarily about health in that situation. I think there's a lot of fear about body appearance, growth, and development still in the sport, right? I think there's still this pervasive notion that smaller and lighter is better. And yet everyone forgets that gymnasts have to go from point A to point B. I was talking to a parent the other day, and this coach wanted my information because one of their really high level gymnasts came back from some vacation and noticeably had gained weight. And I asked the mom, I was like, well, how old's the kid? And she's like, oh, she's 15 or 16. And I was like, well, she, how old does she look? And she was like, oh, she looks like she looked like she was 11. I was like, well, that's what's going on, right? She didn't just gain excess weight on vacation. Like her body is just trying to go through puberty, but it's so sad that the coach doesn't get that, right? And I know this specific coach and I know their history as a gymnast and I know what they were raised in terms of their like food and body environment, and it was not good. So it makes sense that that's like what the coach thinks is right, is like, oh, there's something wrong. But really it's like, no, it's just biology. And if you want her to stay healthy and continue to compete at this level, like we have to fuel her appropriately. I think there's a lot of misinformation about performance issues that sometimes again get interpreted as being like because of their weight or because they grew or because they're not as lean, when really it's just still like a lack of fueling, or we do need some more kind of targeted strength conditioning just to help them catch up. And I think ultimately this all just boils down to good intentions from parents, coaches, medical providers that leads to restriction deprivation and can lead to overeating, stinking, and binging. I had a really smart coach a couple years ago who worked with a lot of level 10s and elites, and we were talking and he was like, yeah, I learned a hard lesson early on. I told the girls I didn't want to see them bringing Starbucks into practice because it wasn't healthy for them. And he's like, what happened when I did that? The amount of Starbucks I saw in the gym, like literally doubled. I was like, yes, that is human nature, especially with adolescents, right? You tell them not to do something and what are they going to do? They're going to do it versus, having a real conversation of like, hey, we live in a food industry that is out of control in terms of portions, in terms of sugar. Maybe you experiment with your caramel macchiato. It normally comes with 4 pumps of sweetener. You want to try it with 3 and see if you still like it, right? That kind of conversation and education, I think, can go a lot further than like, you're not allowed to have this, this isn't healthy. The reality though, and the reason I try to be so careful in what I say and how I say it, is that over 40% of high school female athletes have some form of disordered eating. And that could be, mild concerns per se about food or their body, or all the way to like a full-fledged eating disorder. I promise you these stats are higher for gymnasts specifically, and probably any other aesthetic sport, figure skaters, dancers, cheerleaders. We don't always have accurate research on this because normally they're just giving people a questionnaire and asking them about their eating habits. And of course, it's easy to lie, right? Even if it's anonymous, no one wants to air their dirty laundry. So why are gymnasts more at risk? Well, number one, I think it's the perfectionism, right? The type A personalities that are attracted to the sport, right? You're in good company here. I think there's a lot of chronic underfueling that can then lead to sometimes some kind of body weight overshoot, body weight dysregulation when it gets kind of construed with food. And then there's still just inappropriate nutrition, weight comments, and advice floating around that can definitely cause gymnasts to struggle. It's important to recognize, though, that disordered eating, it doesn't have a look. So you can't just look at your gymnast and decide whether or not they're struggling. And most gymnasts that we work with who have disordered eating have not actually lost weight. They may not be growing correctly or properly, or they may be gaining weight, but their relationship with food is not good. They're kind of in their own prison in their mind in terms of food and body image and just constant food thoughts and food noise. Um, and these are often very secretive struggles that if your gymnast does ask you for help, you should take that very seriously, because most of the time people don't want to admit they're struggling, right? Because it's embarrassing, right? You don't want to admit that, whatever. So in my mind, what is disordered eating? Which again, it's a spectrum. I think it is not normal for your gymnast to have to count and track everything she eats, right? You guys know that we do not teach that, because that's not normal. And once you go down that road, it's very hard to come back from it. I think if you have a gymnast that's refusing to fuel appropriately for how much she's training, that definitely gives me a red flag. Obviously, sometimes that's more of like an anxiety issue, or, it's another issue that is not related to their body image, but still needs to be addressed. If all of a sudden your gymnast will not eat at other people's houses or at a restaurant, is saying that she has to prepare everything, like that's a big red flag. If she can't eat normally on a rest day, that's a red flag. If she all of a sudden tells you that she's not eating sugar anymore, she's not eating carbs, or she's vegan all of a sudden, like definitely would kind of spark my interest of, hey, what's going on here? Or again, just generally refusing to eat other things when that's not like previous behavior for her. The scary stuff that you should know about in terms of disordered eating would be any sort of, precipitous weight gain, weight loss, or fluctuation. But again, in children and adolescents, we don't always see this. There very much can be disordered eating or even an eating disorder, either with just the lack of normal growth, which is very hard to miss or very easy to miss, as you guys know. Um, or they could be like actually gaining too much weight if it's kind of like a binge eating situation, which we've definitely had before. Sudden changes in eating behaviors, again, if all of a sudden they are not going to eat certain things or they can't do whatever, definitely would spark my interest. If all of a sudden, they're already training 20, 30 hours a week and they're coming home and telling you that they have to go on runs and have to do all this extra conditioning, my first question would be to the coach of like, hey, did you like tell her that she needs to run 6 miles on the weekend after training 25 hours a week? If not, okay, like what's going on here? If she's constantly talking about her body, if she's constantly making comments about her body and saying she's fat or blah, 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 I definitely would be curious there. Instead of trying to just validate and say like, oh, you're not fat, anyone would kill to have your body. That's not super helpful. I would come from a place of curiosity of like, wow, I've heard you talk a lot lately about your thighs or your arms. Like what, where is this kind of coming from? Has someone said something to you? Like what's going on? Like I just would come from a place of curiosity. Abdominal complaints in the context of either weight loss behaviors or something weird going on with food, missing a period or irregular periods. And then the scary stuff, inappropriate use of like caffeine, diuretics, stuff like that. I had a college gymnast a couple years ago. She was an incoming freshman, messaged me out of the blue on Instagram. I didn't know this girl, never met her, never talked to her. And she was like, hey, I'm so-and-so. I'm addicted to diuretics and laxatives, and I have been for 2 years and I can't stop. Can you help me? And my heart just absolutely broke because number one, this girl was messaging me on Instagram, right? Like I am not your dietitian unless we are like formally working together. So I cannot give you medical advice on Instagram. But number two, I asked her, I was like, wow, thanks so much for reaching out. Like, have you told your mom? Have you told your coaches? Like, it'd be really great for you to get some support from like a doctor, a dietitian. And she hadn't told anyone. And it's so scary. It's like, where did this little baby learn to use diuretics and laxatives? And like diuretic abuse can kill you. Like you can die from like sudden cardiac arrest. And we did end up officially working together a little bit her freshman year. Her coach could tell that something was going on because it was very much affecting her mentally and it was affecting her gymnastics. She did not tell her coach like exactly what the problem was, but she couldn't feed herself. Like it was a hot mess. And I tried to get her into therapy and she wouldn't go. Cause then it was also this weird, like, I don't want to tell my parents, but I have to get my parents to pay for it. Like it's a lot harder to deal with when they're out of the house. And she's currently a senior and I hope she's doing well. Like I don't think she made the lineup freshman year. I don't know how healthy she stayed, but I really hope that she's on the right path and she got the help and the support that she needed. Um, when we worked together eventually, I was like, gosh, like, where did this start? And the gym that she was at literally made them weigh themselves from the time that she was like 7 years old, right? And I'm like, well, no wonder. No wonder you freaked out when you went through puberty and your body changed and you probably started Googling and found information, right? And it was just really sad, right? Because she had this full ride and she had worked her whole career to do college gymnastics. And I know that her freshman year at minimum was not good. It wasn't good. And the coaches weren't happy. But again, like her coaches didn't know exactly what was the problem. Um, and it just ruined something that she had been working for a long time. The crazy thing is her parents didn't know, right? Like here she was, 17, 18, had a credit card, had her driver's license, and could go and buy these things and do scary stuff without anyone actually knowing. So, how do we prevent this? I think we do our best to support our gymnast body images. So, body image is kind of how you view yourself, right? It's kind of like your mind's eye view of what your body looks like. And body image can very much change day to day, moment to moment. It's very much related to our feelings and emotions. I think it's important as a parent to kind of question your own beliefs about what the ideal body is. Many coaches and parents struggle themselves, so we want to be careful not to project that onto our gymnast. It's interesting because self-esteem informs body image, and the more skills and abilities you have, the higher self-esteem you have. So when we look at all the gymnasts here, all of your gymnasts, they all have a ton of skills and abilities, right? So like in theory, they should have really good self-esteem, but many of them don't. Why? I think it's the culture that we live in. I think we have a bunch of perfectionists where it's never good enough. And so there's a lot of what we call body dysmorphia in the sport where what your gymnast sees in the mirror is not actually reality. And that again is often tied to emotions and stress and kind of what's going on. There are several different kind of negative body image assumptions. Like number one, assuming that if you look a certain way, that will determine your success, your worth, your value, right? Or if I look a certain way, I'll score better. I must try my hardest to look my best at all times. That's often a way to feel more in control. If I looked just like so and so, I would be so much happier. The first thing people notice is XYZ on me when I walk into a room and everyone's staring at me. One of my really favorite things is called fat talk. And I had a therapist years ago when I was in college. And I remember sitting in her office sobbing, saying I was so fat and blah, 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 blah. I'd retired from gymnastics. I was struggling to figure out my major. I think I had made my first B. And she handed me a sheet of paper that had like 3 columns of emotion words. And she gave that to me and she says, "You are not allowed to say that you're fat anymore. You need to pick out on this paper what you're actually feeling." And I remember, here I was at 19 years old. I look at this piece of paper and I didn't know what I was feeling, right? I had zero idea what emotion I was feeling. All I could do was just kind of put it on my body and try to grasp for some control in that way. And I think unfortunately that is so common for a lot of our gymnasts, right? Like they're taught to be robots, they're taught to suck it up, they're taught to ignore their emotions, right? And emotions are good. Emotions are a gift. They give us a lot of insight into kind of what's going on. And so because of that, I think that can get kind of linked to nutrition and body image struggles. The last thing is just the perfectionistic tendencies, right? Perfectionists are never happy with their body and what it looks like. They're always trying to modify it with the ideals we see in society. And this is why body comments are not helpful, because even if you tell someone that they look gorgeous or they're looking skinny or whatever, it's probably not going to be good enough. And then you also just don't know how that comment's going to land. You don't know what they've done to actually look that way. And so it's always best to just not make body related comments, positive or negative. Body positivity has been a huge movement in the past 5 or 10 years, which, it's very interesting watching the shift we've seen in the last year or two with Ozempic, right? Like, I think, prior 3 or 4 years, there was a lot more body diversity that was embraced, right? And celebrities modeling this and love your body and embrace your curves and all these messages. And I feel like now we're back to like thin as in, right? Back to like the 2000s because of Ozempic, which, I think there are people who absolutely benefit from it. It was a drug developed for people with diabetes. And then I think there are definitely a lot of people who are abusing it, right? In the name of, frankly, probably having an eating disorder. So we live in a wild time where it's very confusing for your gymnast. And that's, I had this combo with one of my level 10, 16-year-olds the other day of just, it is so confusing of what they're seeing on TikTok and social media and all the influencers that are scantily clad and literally promoting, if you eat this way, if you take this supplement, if you make my recipe, like you will look like me, right? One reason you never see my body on Instagram is because I don't want to cause another gymnast to struggle, right? Same thing as why I don't share body pictures of gymnasts, right? Like I'm not like, oh, then versus now. Like I don't like any of that because I don't want to cause someone to struggle. I think body positivity can be a really hard thing to attain sometimes. And so more immediately, I think we can engage with what's called body neutrality. And body neutrality is essentially just holding space for yourself and saying, you know what, there are some things about my body that I don't like. I've got more cellulite on my butt, or I don't like my arms, or, I'm not as in good a shape right now as normal, but I can still love it. I can still feed it. I can still put the swimsuit on anyways, right? I can still put the dress on and be okay. And I think that's really important for our gymnast, especially because body image is more tied to your mood and your emotions than like what's actually going on, right? How many of you have woken up and you're fighting with your significant other and your kids are a mess and you're late for work and your boss is stressing you out and you go to get dressed for the morning and you can't find anything to wear, right? It's not that your body has changed overnight and all of a sudden your clothes don't fit. You're just not in the greatest headspace. And so it makes sense that we sometimes turn to food in our body as a way to feel some semblance of control. It's important to know that there is not a single gymnast body out there, right? Body diversity is a real thing. If we look at, the Paris Olympics, we had bodies of every shape, size, right? And so I think helping your gymnast to respect her body, to respect her genetics, and to really maximize her for her, right? What I love about optional gymnastics is there are a million different skills, forwards, backwards, sidewards, twisting, flipping. Like there's so many different options that your gymnast can use to highlight their strengths, right? And I think that's important for them to remember. In terms of food nutrition, what is your job as a parent? Your job as a parent is to help them to grow and develop in the way that's right for them, to make sure that they're eating enough, that they are safe to do all the crazy gymnastics that they're doing, to enforce medical team recommendations, keep in communication with the coaches. Coaches are usually the first people to notice some sort of performance issue with your gymnast. And sometimes they don't know how to communicate that to you because they don't want to insult you or don't want to make you mad. But most of them really, truly do mean well, and they want your gymnast to succeed. And so if something has changed in the gym, it might be helpful if you every now and again check in with them and say, hey, how's she doing? Is she doing well? Anything I need to be aware of? And that can go a long way for them. What's not a parent's role is positive or negative body comments. And I've had parents get really mad at me about this because we live in a culture where we love to positively comment on people's bodies, right? Oh my goodness, Susie, you look so great. Have you lost weight? What diet are you on? Oh, girl, I love your hair, love your nail, right? Like we love to comment on people's body just as a way to be nice. The thing is, though, has your friend lost weight because they've fallen into depression and aren't eating? Have they lost weight because they have cancer? Have they lost weight because they've slipped back into disordered eating patterns, right? Like we never really know why, and you don't want to be encouraging them to engage in that. Hopefully none of your coaches are doing this, but in case you ever move gyms, or maybe this is your current situation, what a coach's role with nutrition and weight is not a whole lot. If your coach doesn't say anything about nutrition, that's fine. If they want to say something about nutrition, I sure hope that it's actually real information or that they bring in an expert. That story I told you about the team meeting and the coaches telling the girls to eat carrots and it being super confusing. The parent told me that the other parent followed up with the coach and said like, hey, y'all kind of fumbled, right? Like you left the gymnast very confused. Snacks are still really important. And like, you need to bring in an expert because clearly you don't know what you're talking about. And I was like, yes, bravo. Like, I think our coaches sometimes feel like they have to do everything. They have to be the coach. They have to be the PT. They have to be the sports psych. They have to be the dietitian. And it's like, no, you are literally only getting paid to coach gymnastics. Like parents can, hire out the experts that they need to support in the ways that they need it. I think coaches need to focus on performance and strength. And if a gymnast is struggling, you know what? Hey, how can we get you stronger? Can we make sure that you're getting enough nutrition? Not, ooh, you're fat or oh, you're too big or whatever. What's not a coach's role is providing nutrition counseling, handing out diets, asking your kid what they're eating and telling them whether it's good or bad. Like none of that's appropriate. Not appropriate to weigh gymnasts, not appropriate to comment on weight or appearance, not appropriate to say that your gymnast nutrition, is the cause of their injury. And I mean more so like, oh, well, your knees wouldn't hurt if you didn't weigh so much, right? It's funny, I had a parent reach out to me on social media last year and they're not a client, but I know what gym they're at. And they're like, all our coaches are doing is talking about reds and underfueling. And if any gymnast is hurt, they're just blaming it on underfueling. And I think this dad was trying to get at like there was a coaching like overtraining problem. And I understand where he's coming from, but I'm also like, I know what gym your kid is at and how hard they train. And so there's a very good chance that a lot of the injuries that are happening are because of underfueling, which again, underfueling, overtraining, we cannot always we can't untangle those two sometimes. And so, yes, like when I hear of programs where it's like literally everyone's injured, I'm like, okay, probably some sort of like workload management training schedule issue versus, if everyone else is doing pretty well, then it's like, oh, okay, what's going on with my kid? I don't know. Hard to say, but it just was a very interesting interaction. I think the last thing I want to leave you with is social media. I would say every kid that we've ever worked with who has struggled with food in their body, they learned what they learned on social media. And so obviously a lot of your gymnasts as they get older, they have Instagrams, they're using it for recruiting. I want you to have that login. I want you to see who they're messaging, what they're liking, what they're sharing, what they're looking at. If you're on Instagram or TikTok, that For You page, or I'm not on TikTok, so I don't know what it's called, but on Instagram, that For You page, that will tell you what your gymnast has been searching and looking at because the algorithm pulls in like more of what they've been looking at. And so if that's filled with a bunch of like diety fitfluencers and food products and like weird stuff like that, then that's like probably what they're looking at, right? Versus like if you look at my For You page, there's usually a lot of chocolate labs on there because I love my dog and I follow a lot of chocolate labs. You need to know what they're looking at. You need to have access to their social media. You need to be regularly checking it. You also need to have regular access to their email. It's not happened as much lately because it's usually more from Instagram, but all the time I'll have minor gymnasts message me and spill their guts to me about how they're struggling with food in their bodies. And I'm like, hey, I'm so sorry. I wish I could help you, but you're a minor. Please have your parent reach out. But they don't have their parent reach out because they're afraid to tell them. But if that parent was reading their email account, they would see that they just like sent an email to a sports dietitian telling them that they're struggling with nutrition, right? There is so much how to eating disorder content online. It's not even funny. So you really do need to be careful at what they're looking at. And you need to be having active discussions of like what's healthy and what's not healthy. And I don't mean from a food perspective, but I mean like what your mind and heart are consuming. That parent who was messaging me the other day about the gym situation where the girl was afraid to eat, birthday cake and dinner. The girl has like lost a bunch of weight and is like talking about it, and her parents like have her on a diet. And, that so worries me about my client hearing that because my client's a little baby. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like I don't need her hearing that stuff, but she's hearing it because like she's in the same training group. And so I was like, hey, mom, you just need to continue to reinforce that like, that is not healthy. That is not appropriate. It's not okay to be on a diet at 15. It's not okay to have lost 10 or 15 pounds that like you didn't have to lose. And she was like, yes, she's actually been coming to me, telling me what she's hearing because it's just really worrisome and concerning. I'm like, okay, good. Cause like, I don't want her to get any ideas. All right. So enough of the body image stuff. Let's kind of wrap it up together tonight. So it's been an awesome 3 months. I know that so many of you have worked one-on-one with us. I, hear from all the dietitians who's doing what and how you're doing. And I know we've made some big strides. I know some of you have struggled a little bit more recently just because life is literally insane right now. But I encourage you to get back on track because it is October and it's already here, right? Like we're seeing clients that have mock meets in November and December. They have their first in-house meets in December. The first big meets are January. And there's so much more that can still happen in this next 3 months. And so 3 months of the program is nothing, right? It's a great starting place, but it's just the beginning. And so I think every quarter, it's a really good idea to step back and look at the big picture of how is my gymnast doing? Are we growing? Are we developing? How is our energy? What's happening injury wise? How's our mood? How's our focus? How's our skill progression? What are we doing with nutrition in terms of prevention? And then how is the relationship with food and body? And I think it's important to assess this 3 or 4 times a year because they're either in season, out of season, in school, out of school, moving up a level, changing training hours. And so you need to be constantly able to kind of navigate this moving target. Obviously, you all should feel pretty confident with the performance plates at this point. And this will change, right? A lot of you have gymnasts who are behind on growth and development and they need a high intensity plate with extra, nutritional beverages, and that's okay. And as they get older and they stop growing, maybe they shift more to a moderate plate, right? That's where we come in. We're not going anywhere. Please keep meeting with us. We have a lot of clients that check in with us at least quarterly to check back in on growth, maybe check labs, and also just check back in on nutrition and fueling and making sure that they're closing that recovery gap and getting what they need. Hopefully your gymnasts have nailed the snacks at this point and they're getting what they need in terms of, mid-morning snacks at school to close that recovery gap, pre-workout snacks, intra-workout snacks, all the things. Hopefully you have a meal prep system still going at this point in the semester, which I'm going to be honest, this has been a real struggle for us lately. But we always eat better when we have a plan, right? I have a plan each week, at least of what nights we need to do takeout, just based on my schedule and availability. I have been buying a lot of frozen meals lately. I've been buying a lot of prepared proteins because I feel like sometimes those take the longest to prepare, but then it's really easy to pair it with a carb and a fruit and a vegetable. Taking 5 or 10 minutes to plan this out, getting your gymnast involved in the process can go so far, especially once comps start and you're gone all weekend and you come back. If it's in your budget, ordering groceries can be huge. Every time we go out of town on the drive home, I'm like, okay, we're a captive audience. Let's plan out the week. What meals are we having? And I'm going to place a grocery order that way when we get home. I know we've got food, we've got vegetables, we've got proteins, we've got what we need to get back on track. Hopefully your gymnast has adopted performance nutrition and they're leveraging intra-workout fuel. I've heard from so many of you that this has made a difference and it makes my heart so happy because this is the name of the game, right? Just like I shared the story about the triathletes. Every gymnast trains, every gymnast conditions. A lot of gymnasts work with recruiters and mental coaches, maybe outside strength and conditioning. But are they truly getting the most out of their practice? And if their brain doesn't have enough fuel, they definitely aren't. And if their muscles don't have enough fuel, they're definitely not, right? And so this is one way that you can separate your gymnast from the competition. We talked a lot in session 4 and 5 about REDs, about underfueling, and this is a graphic that I want you to burn in your brain. And anytime your gymnast has an injury, anytime they have a setback, a struggle, an uptick in mental struggles, whatever, probably need to check in with us and you need to at least step back and think about their nutrition of, okay, what's happening? Are we missing a meal? Are we missing a snack? Have they just had a big growth spurt? Have they increased levels and now they're training more, or it's the same hours, but it's more intense, right? You got to be able to kind of weave and bob over here, navigating this crazy sport and making sure that day after day, they're closing that recovery gap. Because if you are, it can prevent so much. Going with that is growth charts. And I know for a lot of you, this might be the first time that you've really looked at your gymnast growth charts. And it's definitely something I want you to keep an eye on a few times a year. The shifts can be very subtle. Again, most gymnasts don't lose weight. It's just the cessation of normal growth. And it's really easy to just start trailing off on that growth chart. And it's a lot easier to prevent it before it happens. So keeping an eye on that, especially as their situation changes, their schedule changes, gym changes, and making sure they're following along as they need to. We talked about labs. I know a lot of you, we've checked labs on. We do this probably once or twice a year with most gymnasts. More recently, we started to do some more kind of in-depth mineral analysis with very specific gymnasts, like some of my, fracture gymnasts, iron issues. Some of you have been doing this with Melissa, Megan, Ryan with me, just kind of based on the situation. But especially right now, like if you have an upper level gymnast, now is the time to get this checked, because like if they're found to be iron deficient, it takes a minimum of 3 months to correct, and we don't want to wait until they implode. So with that, you guys are finished with the Balanced Gymnast program, and I've already gotten messages from you guys of like, what's next? We've loved it. We want to sign up again. And I'm like, no, you don't have to sign up again. But what we do have is we have our alumni membership. And so this is an amazing way just to stay in the community, get ongoing access to us for questions, support, accountability. You'll get our monthly meal planner. You'll continue to get our monthly workshops, which right now we kind of rotate through, like a gymnast Q&A, which is this month, cooking classes, bonus workshops. Obviously, if you need more support, you definitely can continue doing one-on-one sessions. If you never did them, I encourage you to. People can attest to how magical they are, and they can really be the difference maker. We're nearing the end of the year. And so for a lot of you, if you've been using your insurance, you probably still have more sessions, or your deductible resets in the new year. So you definitely would like to probably keep doing sessions now. Obviously right now we have a package of just 3 sessions, that you don't pay anything else. It's just for the sessions. I think our pricing is probably going to increase in the new year. I'm kind of feeling it out with just everything feels kind of chaotic right now. So at least for the rest of this year, things will remain the same. But yeah, feel free to reach out to me. We try to do a good job of, when you guys hit your 3rd session, if your insurance, the dietitians check with us to see like if insurance is in paying, to make sure you're on track. That way we can kind of keep going. But a lot of you guys have unlimited. And if we haven't checked your insurance or it's changed or something, we're happy to check it for you. So with that, you guys are officially invited to the membership. And I think I have our feedback form link. Yes, I'm putting it here. You guys have ongoing access to the materials. So we are going to be shutting down the Circle platform, which you guys were in, because I think you can tell that it just wasn't as great of a success as Facebook was. We gave the Circle platform 2 cohorts. So we did it in the summer. We gave it for you guys. And while we all love it, like it's so much more organized, it's so great. It's just not the same as Facebook. And so begrudgingly, I'm moving back to Facebook just because it's a better platform for engagement, even though it's not really a better platform. So you guys will still have access to everything inside of Practice Better. So inside the client portal that you log in to do one-on-one sessions, or the same portal that you get the notifications from, if you go under programs, you will have access to all the on-demand trainings. You will have all the resources. You'll have all the 6 live session recordings from your cohort specifically. Like all of that will still be in there. We put it in both places. We put it in both Circle and in Practice Better, because you guys with your cohort, we were kind of feeling it out of like, okay, let's see if this improves. And if not, then we're going to go back to Facebook. So the membership is in Facebook. So I know that will be new for you guys, but I know you all are probably in Facebook groups, so you'll probably love it. It's great. The membership is just come as you go. So it's $49 a month. You can join it now. You can do it. You can leave. You can come. We're also reassessing that right now. I think the biggest change we've made in the last year is, all of the dietitians have access to their clients in the chat. And so we've noticed that there's not as good of engagement in Circle or Facebook, because you're getting your questions answered. And honestly, that's what I want. I would rather you ask your specific dietitian your question about your gymnast versus asking me a question in a Facebook group that I'm probably only going to be able to give you like a general answer for, right? If you're not my client, or even if you are my client, I probably still don't want to give you like specific medical advice in a Facebook group, right? Like that's not how that works. Like I'm going to message you in the chat. So I think that's part of it. But anyways, if you fill out our feedback form, you'll get your first month free, and then it will just start billing you from there. You can request to cancel at any time. We have a gymnast Q&A on October 27th that you guys will get for free anyways. And then cooking class November 16th. And then our fueling for comp season workshop, which is my favorite of the year. I'm not sure on that date. It's sometime in December. I think it's like the 2nd week of December, maybe. I don't know. I'll let you know what date it is. But that is great. So anyways, come join the membership if you want to continue the party with me. regardless, please fill out the feedback form because I can't fix things if you don't let me know, right? And so fill the form out. Let me know what you loved, what you hated, what you want to see better. Let us know how we've done, right? So if you're working with me, Melissa, Megan, Ryan, let us know what you loved, what you want more of, because that's the only way we can continue to improve things. You also, which I think we've already invited you guys, you're also invited to our affiliate program. So if you want information on that, I can post it. Affiliates get paid very well. We like to say thank you if you want to refer us people. And so when we do challenges like we did last week with the preseason challenge, we give you 50% commission on any person that you register or uses your link to register. And then if you refer anyone to the program and they enroll, we have like a tiered commission structure where you get like a swag box, and then we offer you like $100 or a free one-on-one. And then if you have 3 people, it's like $200 or whatever. Like it's pretty sweet. Most people I don't think do commissions like that, but it means a lot to us, and I want to be able to say thank you. So if you want more information for that, we'll email it. I'll put it in circle, and we can go from there. So with that, let me know what questions you have. It can be about anything we talked about tonight or in previous sessions. If you have something personal, free for all, shoot me an email. Please fill out the feedback form. That would mean a lot. And yeah, you do have all the replays. They will be in Practice Better under programs. All the handouts, literally everything will be in there. Yes, upcoming cooking classes, all that stuff, Allison, will be inside the membership. So if you will fill out the link, which I'll send to you for our feedback form, you'll get your first month free. I also can send y'all a link, just the actual membership page that shares some information. And I think we're sending you an email. I don't think you got it today, but I think probably tomorrow you'll get a wrap-up email that has all this info. So anyways, with that, I have loved working with you all. You have been a super engaged cohort. And like the last couple sessions, let's do a fun giveaway. So if you fill out my feedback survey, not only are you going to get a free month in the membership, but I'm also going to enter you in a drawing. Do we want a drawing for one of our custom gorgeous pink Sylvia P leotards? Or do we want a drawing for a swag box? Which last time y'all said swag box. I mailed out Tiffany's and Rana's. I mailed yours out last week. Sorry, it took a hot minute. We were waiting on protein samples, which you'll like. Yeah, tell me in the chat. We want to give away for a swag box or a leotard. Whoever votes, that's what we're gonna do. And Leo's, you can buy those too. And I'll post the link in the membership. You guys can buy those as well. Oh, I'm seeing everyone loves swag boxes. Swag boxes are so fun. I love them. Okay, good. I made up some extra ones. So yeah, if you fill out my feedback survey, we'll give it a week. So we'll email everyone and I'll say, hey, you've got a week to fill it out, and then we're going to do a giveaway. And whoever filled it out from your cohort specifically, we'll do a drawing for a swag box. And then I might do some swag boxes for sale in time for Christmas. I know I've got some products that I need to probably ship. So anyhow, stay tuned. That'll be dropped in the membership. But yeah, I love all of you guys being here. It's been such a pleasure and joy to work with you. I know that your eyes have been opened to a whole different side of gymnastics and fueling. And I know a lot of you have seen performance improvements that you maybe weren't even sure existed. And I also know that some of you are still in the thick of injury and struggle and picky eating and whatever, and that is okay. It has not been long. We do not expect perfection. We are in the trenches with you, and let's keep working together. So, all right, swag box it is. Fill out our feedback form. We'll give you a week, and then we will do our giveaway. Oh, thanks, Karen. I appreciate it. I feel like sometimes I have a hard time convincing parents that the program is what they want, right? Like, I think we have a lot of parents who are like, we just want the one-on-ones. We don't need the program. I'm like, but you do. Like, we used to do just one-on-ones and it didn't have the same impact because like I couldn't have this conversation that we had tonight in a one-on-one session with your gymnast present, or you don't have time for 8 million sessions and appointments. And so I really do believe that this like hybrid approach is the most powerful. It's what we've seen the best results from. So spread the word. Tell your friends. Um, oh, you guys are welcome. We've loved having you. Well, don't be a stranger. If you need something, please reach out. Reach out to your dietitian. Reach out to me. Reach out to the team. And we won't close Circle down until what day is it? I don't know. I think we'll probably leave it open for a week. So we'll put the feedback form in there. We'll put kind of wrap up instructions. We'll send y'all an email. But as soon as you fill out the feedback survey, we're going to put you in the membership. Like you'll get a coupon code in your email, and then you can join the membership with the link in your email, and then we'll let you in the Facebook group. So, oh, you guys are welcome. I am so glad all of you joined. I really truly am. I know that it's an investment, both financially and time. But I also know that your gymnasts have learned things that will transcend way beyond their time in the sport. So, with that, you guys enjoy your evening, and I'll see you in Circle and hopefully eventually in Facebook. Oh, we love you guys too. You're welcome. You're welcome. Bye.